In the ritual, there's a scene where the protagonist fires a gunshot at this eldritch monster, and it does absolutely nothing. And funny enough, the scene haunts me to this day. It's brief, but it perfectly captures what makes eldritch horror so terrifying. Not only is the protagonist completely powerless, but the creature seems almost annoyed at the human's attempt to harm it. That is exactly what eldritch horror is. The crushing indifference of something so ancient and unknowable that human effort to harm or contain it is essentially meaningless. It's the same way you might notice ants and crush them without thinking about it, because they can't possibly understand you or your existence. So, in today's video, we will take a look at different pieces of media that depict eldritch horror. We will be looking at ancient Lovecraftian gods, Jotnar of Nordic mythology, and cosmic spiders that seems to care about humans. So, sit back and enjoy. Arrival was released in 2016 and directed by Denis Villeneuve. The film opens with the sudden appearance of 12 enormous alien-like vessels, each hovering silently over different parts of the planet. What's weird about these vessels is that they don't seem to attack, communicate, or try to explain why they're there to begin with. To solve the problems of these alien things, a linguist by the name of Louisa Banks is recruited by the military to try and figure out how to talk to whatever is inside those ships. When Louise finally comes face to face with the aliens, which are called heptapods in the movie, it is revealed that the things are colossal, seven-limbed beings that barely resemble anything human. They communicate by expelling dark ink into the air, forming complex circular symbols. As the film progresses and Louise slowly starts to decipher the meaning of their communication, it is revealed that the complex circular symbols aren't words in any normal sense. They are entire thoughts expressed all at once. Louise learns to communicate with the heptapods, and it starts to alter how she perceives reality. She begins experiencing visions of a child she hasn't had yet, which in the film are revealed to be memories from the future. This isn't a side effect or a hallucination, it's the result of how the heptapods experience time. To them, past, present, and future exist simultaneously, and their language rewires the human brain to see time the same way. This alteration of Louise's way of understanding time and language is what really makes Arrival such a great example of eldritch horror. An alien civilization so old and so far beyond your understanding that even their way of communicating is in another dimension from your own. That their way of understanding existence fundamentally alters their perception of time. The aliens from Arrival, in a way, remind me of the aliens from H.P. Lovecraft's The Shadow Out of Time, because their way of thinking goes far beyond normal human understanding. The aliens in The Shadow Out of Time also perceive time very differently, not as a straight line, but as something much larger and more interconnected. They can essentially take over minds across time and space, gaining insight and knowledge in ways that are completely alien to us. Near the end of the film, a misunderstanding occurs between the aliens and the humans. The heptapods uses a symbol that gets translated as weapon, which in turn makes global tension spike and several nations prepare for war. But due to Louise's altered brain state, she basically saves the planet from destruction. It is revealed that the aliens were essentially offering humanity a tool, their language itself, which could help them with a future crisis. The film is amazing and I can definitely recommend it. Underwater was released in 2020 and directed by William Eubank. Set in the year 2050, the film follows Nora Price and her colleagues at the Deep Sea Research and Drilling Facility, Kepler 822. Kepler 822 is stationed at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, so we are already in places where humans weren't meant to be. When a massive earthquake destroys part of the station, the surviving crew must navigate the terrifying situation they've been put in. The crew has to make a journey across the ocean floor to get to another part of the station in order to get to the surface. How they are able to walk on the ocean floor and not die due to the pressure makes no sense, but hey, okay. From the jump, the film hints at, and to some extent even makes it clear, that the earthquake was not necessarily just an accident. Something conscious and ancient is present down there, and has intentions that might not fit what the humans had planned. As the remaining crew makes their way across the ocean floor towards the abandoned station, they face a series of life-threatening encounters. Humanoid monsters drag the crew members into caves and essentially hunts them from the outside of the station. The deeper the crew descends, the more obvious it becomes that the ocean floor is ruled by something vast and unknowable. By the time the film's final act arrives, Nora is the only one left of the crew. Despite the loss of her crew, Nora is still yet to face the final part of this eldritch horror she has been witness to throughout the film. In the film's final act, a massive ancient Cthulhu-like figure is revealed, and we learn that it's essentially this thing that has been the reason for all of this. We also learn that the monsters who were hunting the crew were basically only babies, and when the Cthulhu-like being is revealed, we get to see the full extent of the horror. Likewise, several shots also emphasize just how small and powerless the crew and even the entire Kepler 822 are in comparison to this incomprehensible entity. It is this combination of a carefully handled reveal and a persistent sense of insignificance that makes Underwater such a compelling portrayal of eldritch horror. The Ritual was released in 2017 and directed by David Bruckner. The film follows a group of friends whose lives are shattered after a violent robbery leaves one of them dead. 6 months after the death, the remaining 4 decides to honor his memory with a hiking trip in northern Sweden. After a group member injures his knee, the friend group insists that they cut through the forest instead of following the marked trail. Despite the main protagonist's dislike of the idea, the group wanders through the haunted forest. The off-putting feeling of the forest is almost immediately revealed to be true, as the group stumbled upon a gutted and hanged moose. They are obviously stunned at first, but they play it off as if it was a bear to try and rationalize the absurdness. But the strangeness doesn't stop with the moose. The group also experience strange symbols carved into the tree. That night, a storm forces them to seek shelter in an abandoned cabin, where they discover even more strange ritual necklaces, and a disturbing sculpture made of twigs and antlers. By morning, it is evident that something has terrorized them during the night, and the scene in which the realization occurs upon the friend group is played out so perfectly. The main protagonist wakes up with mysterious wounds on his chest after experiencing a hallucinogenic dream which reenacts the night in which his friend was murdered. We actually get a quick glimpse of the monsters running away right after our main protagonist wakes up from his dream, but it's very hard to spot. Another friend is in a state of terrified hysteria. Another has pissed his pants in terror, and the last is found naked, praying to the strange statue upstairs. Despite the strange night, the group decides to wander deeper into the forest since they can't find a way back to the original trail. This leads the group to become increasingly disoriented, and the situation becomes even worse. They find signs that others have vanished in the woods before and were never found. The following night, the friend group decides to camp in their tents and not in a cabin like the night before. During the night, the group is terrorized once more by the monster. This time, the forest being takes one of the friends, and he is found impaled and gutted on a tree branch, just like the moose at the start of the film. The remaining 3 carry on, but as day passes once again and night comes around, yet another friend is taken by the being and killed. In their escape from the monster, the protagonist and the injured friend eventually discover a hidden torchlit settlement where they are captured by a cult that seems to worship the thing that has been chasing them all along. At the settlement, it is revealed that the ancient forest being is a creature called Moda. Moda is what you in Norse mythology call a Jotun, an ancient godlike being which is an offspring of Loki. In the film, the settlers tell our main protagonist that Moda grants its followers immortality in exchange for human sacrifice and worship. But what is haunting is that this immortality doesn't stop you from aging. You essentially become a living dead body, which our main protagonist finds out firsthand when he goes upstairs in the cabin in which they were taken prisoner. We also realize that Moda has essentially been stalking the friend group the whole time, indicating that the being has a form of patience and intelligence, The stalking of the group is actually hinted at throughout the film. There are countless scenes where you can spot Moda in the background stalking them. Despite Moda's haunting presence, I just can't stop thinking about how it kinda looks like the forest spirit from Princess Mononoke. Perhaps just 10 times more horrifying. Leave a comment if you agree. The film ends with the injured friend sacrificed by the people of the settlement to Moda. The injured friend's mind is taken over by Moda, and in his last moments he hallucinates that his wife is coming for him. Unfortunately, he is snapped out of the hallucination, and when it is too late, he realizes that it is Moda claiming him. The protagonist, on the other hand, refuses to submit to Moda, and manages to escape after wounding the creature and setting the Cole's cabin on fire. The thing that makes the ritual so special is not just the fact that it is an amazing film in terms of its simplicity and pacing, but it's also the realization of the total indifference between the friend group's reality before the hiking trip and the reality the main protagonist now faces. Like, can you imagine him going grocery shopping after experiencing an eldritch guard in a Swedish forest? It's just such a funny contrast. Beyond the Aquilla Rift was released in 2019 and was part of the Netflix series Love, Death and Robots. Beyond the Aquilla Rift begins like a fairly straightforward sci-fi survival story. A cargo ship is thrown vividly off course after a navigation error, and the crew awakens in an unfamiliar repair space station on the edge of known space. The main protagonist, Tom, reconnects with a woman named Greta, a fling from his past, who now appears to be running the station. Over time, it becomes clear that something about her and the station itself is off. Greta reveals to Tom that they are essentially 150,000 light years away from Earth, meaning that several hundred years have passed on Earth and that the crew's old life is essentially gone. Tom tells a crew member from his ship named Susie the news about the altered course, and she freaks out. She tells Tom that Greta is not who she pretends to be and attacks her, but Greta manages to subdue her. Tom, who's obviously startled by the situation, now begins to have his own suspicion. He sees that Greta, who suffered a cut from the crew member, has a completely healed wound only hours after the attack, and he eventually confronts her with his suspicion. Greta comes clean and tells him that she's not Greta and has been pretending to be her. She reveals to him that Tom is still actually asleep in his tank, and this has all been an illusion to protect him from a horrifying reality. Greta, or the thing pretending to be her, says that Tom's ship indeed did drift unimaginably far from Earth, but not into a repair space station, but instead into an ancient region of space, completely incompatible with human life. Tom, completely furious by the lying, wants the truth to be shown, but the thing caring for Tom tells him that he's not ready yet for the illusion to be broken. Tom doesn't care and demands the truth. The being breaks the illusion, and we see the reality and consequences of the crew's altered course. Many of them are dead, and Tom seems to be malnourished to the point of him basically being a few days away from death. This being that has been caring for Tom is revealed to be a massive eldritch spider-like alien entity. Its true form is horrifying to say the least, and a stark contrast to the human image it projected. Yet, the episode makes the reveal more complicated by showing that the creature is not actually a predator. Instead of hunting or killing the lost travelers, it takes care of them. It keeps them alive and creates comforting illusions so that they don't have to face the painful truth. This is what makes Beyond the Aquilla Rift such a strong example of eldritch horror. The creature creates a deeply ambivalent feeling in us. Its appearance triggers a instinctive fear, something primal, but at the same time its nature turns out to be gentle and caring. That contrast is what makes it so disturbing in my opinion. The Mist was released in 2007 and directed by Frank Darabont. The film takes place in the small town of Bridgeton, Maine, which is suddenly engulfed by a thick, unnatural fog after a violent thunderstorm. From the start, it's clear that the mist is not a normal weather event. It is basically filled with Lovecraftian entities that are eldritch and of a biology beyond Earth. The main protagonist and a small group of survivors barricade themselves in a local supermarket, where throughout the film they battle psychological breakdowns, but also the monsters from the mist itself. The eldritch horror of the mist comes from the creatures themselves. For most of the film, they are glimpsed at only partially. Massive tentacles sliding on the doors, enormous clawed limbs dragging victims into the fog, and shapes so large and unnatural that the human mind can barely process them. These brief appearances create a sense of dread and unknowingness that's terrifying to say the least. As mentioned before, the mist also has psychological effects on the humans. Religious fanatics manipulate survivors into believing the fog is divine punishment and essentially calls for sacrifice. This fanaticism serves as a disturbing example of how humans can behave when confronted with something they do not understand. In this sense, the monsters within the mist come to resemble manifestations of an uncaring universe that seems to operate according to some eldritch nature we humans are a part of. By the film's final act, the audience is given a full view of the behemoths, six-legged, towering, and covered in Lovecraftian tentacles. If you enjoyed the video, please check out some of the other videos here on the channels.